Hello everyone, welcome to this episode of the show. And on this episode of the show, I'm going to be telling you 7 good reasons why it still makes business sense to invest in Nigeria, specifically real estate in Nigeria.
Hi, my name is Ola Brown, and I'm going to be talking about probably the subject that I'm most passionate about in the whole world, which is why investing in Africa makes sense. And, it reminds me of, a time when America was a really scary place for European investors to invest. JP Morgan actually established his reputation as a banker by traveling to Europe and convincing European investors to invest in this scary place that they'd never been to called America. And what JP Morgan, or the process that investors used to take, was investors in Germany and in Austria, wealthy families, would have to transport solid gold cash from Austria and Germany and France into London to be shipped physically in a ship across to New York, because there was no electronic transfer, to bankers like JP Morgan, who would then invest in America and invest that money. And he would invest it in infrastructure, he would invest it with governments, and the returns from to investors were higher in America than they could get in Europe. But then when he made the profit, he had to go through the process of collecting all that money from different states in America, getting it all into New York in physical cash and shipping it back, and then distributing it physically back to all of those investors in Europe. And JP Morgan had one of his most famous quotes where he said, "I'm not in the business of finance, I'm in the business of trust." Because it took a high degree of trust for these investors that had never seen America, that had only heard about this country, to believe that one man was not going to run away with their money and they were going to get these high investments. And what were the things about America at the time that made it so attractive? There was a huge infrastructure deficit, which means they needed to build those roads, they needed to build their rail, they needed to, get money for development. Also, the population was fast growing. But the disadvantages of America were that it was scary. People didn't really understand it, people didn't know about it, but people that were willing to take the risk made a huge amount of money. And people that bet on the right kind of bankers, like JP Morgan, who had high integrity and had the sort of financial expertise to select the right investments on their behalf and give them the returns, made a lot of money. And I think the same thing has happened with China, where China again was scary. Sort of 20, 30 years ago, people really didn't know what China was going to become. A lot of people hadn't traveled to China, but they knew that it was fast growing. They knew that it was an economy that lacked infrastructure, had a lot of basic needs, but had a big consumer class that was ready to consume. And it was growing super fast, one of the fastest growing populations in the world at the time. And again, people that found trusted investors in China to bring their money from Europe and America that had already developed with European money back to China made a lot of returns for taking that risk and taking that bet on that fast growing economy. And I see the same thing happening in Africa, and that's what I'm going to discuss today. Now, 7 reasons to invest in Africa. Number 1, rapid urbanization. According to the United Nations, the rate of urbanization, people moving from rural areas to urban areas, was approximately 43% in 2015, and it rose to 56%, or will rise to 56% in 2050. Urbanization often leads to a growing consumer market as people move to the cities en masse, increasing their purchasing power and demand for goods. Investors can tap into this urban consumer base by targeting sectors such as retail, housing, healthcare, transport, and entertainment. Number 2 reason to invest in Africa: mobile phone and internet access and penetration. According to data from the World Bank, mobile phone penetration in Africa reached 80% in 2019. showing the significant adoption and usage of mobile phones on the continent. The growing number of mobile phone users creates a vast consumer base for various products and services, including mobile apps. Number 3, demographics. The average age in some parts of Europe is 50. The average age in Africa is 19. There are going to be more babies born in Nigeria this year than in the whole of Europe. And when I lived in Japan, as I mentioned earlier, I realized that there are more adult diapers sold in Japan than children's diapers. And when you think back to that story that I told about China, that rapidly growing population really drove their economic growth. And the people that got in early were able to really get the economic as well as impact rewards of investing in this fast growing area of the world. And I see that this is beginning to happen in Africa again. And it will be so interesting in terms of impact and in terms of economic returns for investors that get in at this stage where we're at the beginning of the curve. The consumer market. According to a report by McKinsey & Company, consumer spending in Africa is projected to reach 2.1 trillion by 2025, representing a compound annual growth rate of 8%. This growth rate is higher than most of the world, and Africa's youthful population represents a significant consumer class with increasing consumer spending and power, purchasing power. Number 5, diversification. If you watch my video on why invest in startups or how to invest in startups, I talk about portfolio theory and diversification a lot, and how most financial advisors would advise their clients and advise people to make sure that they have pots of investments in different regions, because you never really for sure know where you're going to get your returns from. So number 5 is about diversification and about making sure that your investments are spread across different regions of the world. So whichever region is fast growing at a particular time, you get to get the returns from that particular region. Number 6, innovation. I am almost 100% sure, based on my experiences on the continent, based on interactions with the ecosystem, based on my deep knowledge of technology and technology products in Africa, that the next wave of global innovation will come from this continent. When I look at ecosystems like North America and Israel and Singapore that receive close to $1,000 per person in venture capital funding, compared to Africa that receives just $1 or $2 on average in venture capital per person, but yet Africa and African companies have developed some of the most innovative fintech companies in the entire world. There's no clearer demonstration of the innovative capacity on the continent, and I think this is a massive arbitrage opportunity that shows that investing in Africa is investing in the future of innovation. Impact. It's the biggest and most innovative fintech market in the world right now. And when I use the term biggest, I mean biggest in terms of some of the biggest companies coming out of it. When you look at companies like Wave, companies like Flutterwave, companies like Paystack, even in terms of performance financially, you can see that, and in terms of number of transactions, you can see that these are super rapidly growing companies. And that's a testament to the innovative potential. When I talk about biggest, I also talk about the number of mobile money transactions. Like I said, 70% of all the world's mobile money transactions occur in sub-Saharan Africa. The world's first truly sort of digital currency, M-Pesa, was sort of initiated in Kenya. Not in North America or Europe or Asia like you'd expect. But despite the dynamism of the economy and despite the innovation and despite the entrepreneurial nature, Africa is still the poorest continent in the world. Investing in Africa will create jobs. It will lift people sustainably out of poverty in a different way than topic giving or charity. This creates real companies. And I always say that there's no such thing as a non-profit. Every non-profit or charity collects money from people that are making a profit. So it's important for African companies to receive investment and make profits so that they can give to their own non-profits. And we also spoke about in my last video on venture capital and the economy, just how many jobs venture capital backed companies have created. For just 0.1% of American GDP that has gone into venture capital, it's produced 11% of jobs. Extraordinary returns in terms of economic returns and impact. The venture capital asset class has created more jobs and economic growth in the past few years than any other type of investment, and that's super exciting as number 7. So I've spoken about rapid urbanization. I've spoken about mobile phone penetration. I've spoken about the demographics. I've spoken about the growing consumer market. I've spoken about the opportunity that Africa gives for diversification in your portfolios. I've spoken about innovation. Like I said, I believe that Africa is the future of innovation and the most innovative financial services market on the face of the earth. I've also spoke about impact in terms of jobs and lifting people out of poverty.
So you heard from Dr. Ola the 7 good reasons why investing in Africa still makes sense, and also investing in Nigeria. And just briefly, I'm going to go through it and relate it to our industry. Rapid urbanization, using Lagos as a contact point. I was talking to a client from the diaspora. She was telling me that before she left Nigeria, VGC was a bush. For those of you that stay in Lagos right now, you know what VGC Agja axis was a bush. And in just less than 10 years, in just a decade, the urbanization has been rapid. We have people coming into the urban cities, and also you have the cities becoming more and more urban. You're having more urban regions, and also you're having more suburban regions that are bordering the urban cities and also feeding off. And you know, when that happens, there's need for housing, there's need for shelter, there's need for commerce, there's need for businesses, all of those things. So it is happening at such a rapid pace. The UN projects that by 2050, 2/3 of the world would actually live in urban areas. So it's a very good time to have land. It's a very good time to invest in rental. It's a very good time to invest in commercial properties. It's a very good time to land bank, because you know, as urbanization goes on, more plots are filled and more people are going and traveling, you know, outside of the cities, and you're now having towns, you have villages, you have hamlets, and you know, what have you. So the first is urbanization. One reason why you should invest in Nigerian real estate, Lagos real estate to be specific. Then the second one, mobile phone penetration. Mobile phone penetration is just so much, you know, which ties into the next one, which is about consumer, the broad consumer spectrum. Because you know, you can sit down in your house and you see ads. Oh, I want to get this, I want to get this. People that buy from me, even they're on their phones, they're on their laptops, and it means that it's democratizing the playing field. So you have more eyeballs able to see offers, able to see deals, able to transact, able to do business. So it's also widening the economy, and you know, that's another telltale sign why you should invest. You have demographics, and as she mentioned, the average age of people in Africa is 19 years, and these people are going to grow. These people are also going to consume stuff. So if you contrast it with places like Japan, Japan actually has an aging population, as she mentioned, and you know, they are even building about 900,000 houses per year for even an aging population. So how much more a city like Lagos, that you're having more newborn babies every day in church? We are giving testimonies, and even outside of the country, people are giving birth. Nigerians really love to procreate, and you know, this is a huge market that would only grow and would only go into the consumer class. So housing needs and what have you need to be put in structure. I mean, we always talk about housing deficit. We've not dealt with it, and then there's still people that are coming up. So there's more need for housing, there's more need for amenities. So that's just another reason to plug into it. Diversification. That's why the title of this is Invest in Nigeria rather than maybe US, UK. Some of you might have, especially Nigerians in diaspora, you may have some stuff in the US, you may have some stuff in the UK, you may have some stuff in Dubai, but you don't put all of your eggs in one basket. So the rate at which innovation is going on, which is another point, innovation, it's going on. We literally had, in the past 10 years, we have had 3 unicorns, 3 companies tech companies worth $1 billion, Flutterwave, Andela, and InterSwitch. Even Jumia was not over the time. Even Jumia is a tech unicorn, and we don't even know what the next decade holds. So as innovation is going on ahead, and you're seeing the massive arbitrage opportunities we should mention, because other countries, they have about $1,000 per person in venture capitalist investment. It can only get better for Africa. It can only get better for Nigeria. More companies that want to invest here. You need to diversify. Don't just put all of your stuff in Europe. Don't just put all of your stuff in Eurobond. We have different stuff. Don't just get properties there. Have something here. And which ties to the last one is that impact investing. So lots of people have the heart for their people. They want to help. They want to help NGOs. They want to support stuff. The best way to support and grow for impact is to invest in businesses, to invest in property, because you can only give people handouts for so long. It's not sustainable. Businesses are able to run, give you a return, and are able to employ even more people than handouts would do. So this is what I have. It's no wonder you see US companies, a lot of the US government has very, very massive interest in Lagos. Recently, you see the US consulates worth about $500 million, and then you see the Film City just launched $100 million worth. People are seeing these opportunities, but you seeing the opportunity. If you want to invest in real estate here in Nigeria, here in Lagos, contact me. Let me get you started on your journey. This is the Ownahome.ng TV show. Shout out to Dr. Ola Brown. All credits go to her, because this is our original video which you just saw. And if you want to invest in Nigeria, if you want to invest in Lagos, contact me. Let me get you started on your journey. Thank you very much for watching. This is the Ownahome.ng TV show. Here at Ownahome, we believe that owning a home, owning a property should not make you lose sleep. So we are committed to giving you the very best property recommendations and insider real estate. Thank you very much for watching. Kindly like, kindly share, kindly subscribe. I'll see you at the very next video. Bye-bye.